Hello there. Well, I've decided to make one last, probably futile attempt at opening people's eyes to what's happening in the world today. Opening their eyes to the fact that this Covid-19 is nothing more than just another form of bullying to go along with all the other bullying we've suffered throughout our lives. Because there's two types of bullying. There's a blatant, obvious type, which is carried out by violence and harassment, intimidation, etc. But there's a second type of bullying, which is a more softly approach. It's a more covert type of bullying and more prolonged, carried out by coercion and indoctrination and scaremongering. And like I said, we've been bullied all through our lives. It starts when we're a child, where we're bullied into what we can and can't do by parents who are indoctrinated already as to how the world should run. And we go to school at 4 or 5 years old, and we're left at the mercy of another stranger, a teacher who himself or herself is already basically programmed into what they can and cannot teach us. Then we become teenagers, we're bullied into believing that these exams and the results of them are basically life changing, and if we fail them, then we're going to have no semblance of a successful life. We're bullied then as teenagers and young adults into what we should wear and shouldn't wear because big corporations and their advertising and their use of so-called celebrities to endorse their products have people thinking, oh, I must wear the latest Nike or I must wear the latest Adidas. Those who can't afford to do this are bullied and ridiculed, and it goes on and on. So basically our teenagers and young adults are being bullied covertly by big corporations. But when you become adults, it doesn't get any easier. In fact, it gets worse because as adults, we're bullied into accepting this materialistic world, bullied into accepting that money is God, money is everything. So we go out there, we get ourselves a job. We've now got a whole new set of rules to abide by. We're working for a boss or bosses. So we're out there working our asses off to make rich people richer and hopefully put a roof over our heads at the same time. Then, even if we achieve that, we then find that each week we have to give away almost half of our earnings to taxes and insurances, many of which we don't even bloody need, such as TV licenses and other such nonsense. But also, as adults, we're bullied into accepting officialdom, accepting elected officials and the laws they pass, no matter how much we may disagree with both. We're also bullied into their narratives and accepting their agendas. We're bullied also ridiculously into accepting their official verdicts of events, of historical events. In fact, specific historical events we're not even allowed to deny without being threatened by prison in certain countries. It's absolutely ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, as adults, we're bullied into accepting some of the most ridiculous of concepts. We're bullied into accepting that, for instance, a grown man can wake up one morning and decide he's a woman, and that we have to accept this. We have to treat him as a woman, allow him to use women's facilities, allow him to partake in women's sports. It's ridiculous. We're being bullied into accepting and going against thousands of years of belief that there's more than two genders on this planet. In fact, we're getting close to 100 plus genders. It's ridiculous. We're also bullied into accepting that sexualities other than nature, the design of nature's chosen sexuality for reproduction, heterosexuality, other sexualities, were bullied into accepting as natural too. We're also bullied, especially in the West, into accepting mass immigration to our countries, accepting hundreds of thousands, millions of foreigners from countries with different languages and cultures and religions and beliefs and ideologies, allowing them to come into our pot and expecting that pot not to boil over. Basically, we're being bullied into giving up one of our most basic human rights, and that's the right to have free speech and also free thinking. And if you think this is nonsense, think of this guy a few weeks ago in the UK who got a knock on his door from the police who said they had called to check on his thinking. We are at the start of what's going to become a thought police state. Be ready for it. Because basically, all our lives, we're being bullied into being compliant, bullied into silence, being bullied into giving up our free speech, bullied into changing our beliefs, and basically bullied into compliance. Because compliance is basically the end product of bullying. When somebody bullies you by whatever method or means they choose, the outcome they're looking for is for you to become compliant. So you might ask, who's doing this bullying? Well, if you look in most of the countries and you look to the top of the tree, many people think they will see there sat the governments and the politicians. They couldn't be more wrong, because all our governments and politicians are basically puppets on the end of a string, and holding and controlling them strings above are a very select band of people, a very select band, a few individuals who are very, very wealthy, very, very powerful, very, very influential. I call this group the puppet masters. These puppet masters are controlling our governments, controlling our politicians, and therefore dictating their agendas, dictating their policies, dictating their laws that we have to adhere to. And through the governments, they have control of the militaries and the police forces to do their bidding. These puppet masters also own most of the world's mainstream media. The mainstream media are the mouthpiece of the puppet masters. The mainstream media do not hold the government's to account for us, the little people. They are holding the governments to account for their paymasters, the elite, the puppet masters. These puppet masters also control the world's finances to the point where they can create money and debt out of nothing to enhance their wealth, and at the same time to put the governments into debt and to put us, the individuals, into debt. This allows them to control the governments and also to keep many of us in debt for the whole of our lifetimes. These puppet masters also control Hollywood, which is most of the movie making in the world and the output of Hollywood. So with all this bullying through the ages and all this indoctrination and all this coercion and all these agendas, where are we now in the world? Well, it's 2020 and we're stuck in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, apparently supposedly caused by a virus that has spread worldwide. A virus that somehow magically has just come out of the blue, and a virus they would have you believe was started by one Chinese guy eating a dodgy bat. But I don't believe this, because I believe there's enough evidence out there to suggest strongly that this is in fact a planned, a preordained attack on humanity, on us, the people. And does that mean that 2020 was the preordained date for this attack? Or did they just have to wait until the world was indoctrinated enough in order for them to get away with it? Because believe you me, I fully believe that we are now entering a new age on this planet and a new age in humanity. And I also believe that this bullying I speak of, it's going to intensify tenfold. Because right now, half of this world is in complete panic. Half of this world is paralyzed by fear. And as we all know, fear is the favourite weapon of the elite to control the masses. Through the ages, they've used the fear of God and the fear of death and the fear of hell in order to control the masses. Now, in the middle of this pandemic, they're using the fear of a virus and the fear of people being killed by this virus in order to control us. So now, if any of you are laughing at me, calling me a nut, disbelieving what I have to say, just remember, they are controlling you. You're laughing at me as you're hiding behind your fucking sofa because you're too scared to go out of your house, walk down your street in case you walk past another human being. Despite experts out there claiming this virus cannot jump 6 feet, cannot be passed from human to human, because the mainstream media, their mouthpiece, remember, tell you it can You're hiding behind your sofa. Now, I've been in lockdown for 5 weeks, but not through fear, through necessity. Because the places I go, my job, my hobbies, my activities are all closed down. So I've been a good boy. I've stayed at home, but not through fear. But yesterday I popped out and I went to the shops. This was an event. I stood like a good boy in the queue, even though in my head I was saying this is bullshit. I stood 2 meters apart. When it was my turn to go into the store, I walked in. I let a lady out, walked in, grabbed my basket, off I went. I was stopped by a voice. Oi mate, what do you think you're doing? I looked around to see what can only be described as a clown in an orange vest. I told him, I said, I'm going shopping, mate. What are you doing? He said, no, you can't come in the store yet. There isn't any room for you. I said, I've been waiting outside. The lady's come out. I've come in. I'm walking down this aisle. This aisle is empty. There's plenty of room. He said to me, I decide when there's enough room for you. You'll have to wait outside. So rather than knock him out or create a scene, I stood back outside again. I came back in, and as I'm walking around doing my shopping, I'm laughing at this complete tool in my head. But it suddenly dawned on me, did I just get a fucking horrifying, scary glimpse of our future? In the future, is somebody going to take this clown, this fool, this idiot, this Jobsworth, who 5 weeks ago no doubt was stacking shelves, because that's the height of his ambition. That's as far in life as his intelligence would allow him to get. 5 weeks down the line, he's been promoted to chief statsy fucking commander of Home Bargains store. In the future, is somebody going to put a walkie-talkie and a baton in his hand, dress him up in a uniform and give him the powers to direct me and direct where I can stand and where I can't stand, when I can enter a building, when I can't enter a building? Is this what our future's going to be? This fucking clown who at 8 o'clock on Thursday night will no doubt be sat in his sofa with his dick in his hand, getting off with all the clapping outside and sitting there pleased with himself because he thinks he's a key worker. It's a scary thought, but it isn't beyond the pale that that was a glimpse of our future. Because the thing is, this Covid-19 has done nothing but spread absolute fear and confusion all around this planet. And as I said before, fear is the weapon of the elite to control the masses. But they love the confusion they create just as much. They get off on this confusion. This confusion is like Viagra to the puppet masters. They get off on it almost as much as they do to prey on innocent young children. Now, I'm no expert, and I can only go off the things I see and the things I read and what common sense I have left. But I don't know 100% for certain if we're dealing with an actual virus, or if we're dealing with a scam, or if we're dealing with something much more sinister. But I do know these things. I know that if this is a virus, it is nowhere near as lethal as is being made out to us. The evidence is there that the figures of deaths and Covid-19 positives is being doctored. I read literature, I read the data sheets from our own government, and in one it actually claims that a doctor does not need a positive Covid-19 test on a patient to declare that patient has died as a result of Covid, as long as he saw some signs and symptoms. So we know there's doctoring of the figures going on out there. That's a given, an absolute certain. We also know they're building hospitals in London, Nightingale Hospital with 4,000 beds, where they made a big hoo-ha. There was cameras all over the place as this was being erected in a couple of weeks. Has anybody seen any patients in any of them beds? Are they waiting for a second wave? How do they know a second wave of COVID is coming? There's so much misinformation and information. To try and delve through it all is an absolute minefield. But if there is no virus, then what's happening? Could it be that something else in the last few months has been attacking our nervous systems, attacking them to the point where even minor illnesses are being amplified and accelerated to a devastating effect in people who are already ill? That would answer a lot of questions as well. And also, they go on about testing for COVID-19. There's information from experts, biologists, virologists, health experts on the internet claiming that you cannot even test for COVID-19, but you can test for a genetic material in our bodies which is created with various illnesses. So basically, a large percentage of people have this inside them naturally. One thing I do know is I don't think in any way, shape, or form that our doctors and our nurses are complicit in this scam, if it is indeed a scam. But I do believe that, along with the rest of us, they can just as easily be duped into believing what they're told. But out there, there are so many experts, so many whistleblowers who are being silenced by mainstream media, and silenced now even on social media. When people are being silenced of an opinion, it will always lead to questions. And I don't know the answers to them questions, but I do know another thing for certain, that something is seriously up with this situation. There's something smells about this whole thing. Okay? So all I can suggest to anybody is do your own research. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. But I can give you one safe tip and a safe option. When you're researching something like this, take anything you're told by our mainstream media, the mouthpiece of the elite of the puppet masters. Take anything they tell you with a pinch of salt. Now, my opinion, make no mistake, is that I do believe genuinely that we as a people are under attack. I don't know if it's just an attack on our health, or attack on our minds, or attack on our freedoms, or attack on our way of living. But I undoubtedly believe that in some form we are under attack. I also believe that those who have initiated this attack, they will not relent. The warning signs have been there for the last couple of decades that this was coming upon us. And I do believe that now that they've basically taken aim, they intend to fire. So that means we could be lined up for a lot more attacks, maybe blatant or maybe more covert. So there's talk now of vaccines. What's in them vaccines? Who knows? There's talk, and has been for a number of years, about ID chips, about satellite trackers with facial recognition all around the world. There's talk about even travel restrictions leading to us having to carry a travel pass. The thing is, I don't have the answers to all the questions I ask. I don't think anybody has all the answers, but I've got a lot of suspicions, and I do believe if I keep searching, and we all keep searching, the answers are out there. Because when it comes to the puppet masters, these puppet masters have their secret societies. They have their Freemasons, and they have their clubs of Rome and various others. And they go by a code. They live and work by a code. And this code dictates, as does their arrogance, it dictates that they have to give a covert forewarning of anything they're about to carry out. So think about that. Okay? How would these puppet masters, who control the mainstream media, control governments, control Hollywood, how would they forewarn us of what they're going to carry out? Well, Hollywood and the movies of Hollywood would be a very good starting point. Go back to pre-2001 and look for any movies, any terrorism movies showing buildings or showing attacks with aeroplanes on cities. Now, 2020, go back in the last 20 years to any movies showing viruses, showing attacks by viruses, showing futuristic methods of control like travel passes, facial recognition, ID chips. All the evidence is there. The forewarnings have been given to us. If people are willing to open their eyes and see and look. If you go back to 2012, the opening games of the Olympics, there was a massive forewarning in them opening games as to what was coming our way. But I can't do it for you. It's up to every individual themselves, either to accept the situation they're in, believe the lies and the indoctrination of the mainstream media and their politicians, or basically free their minds, open their minds to the other possible causes of why we're all sat behind our fucking sofas shaking with fear. People, open your fucking eyes to what's really going on in this world around you. Other than that, all take care of yourselves, look after your families, and stay safe. And feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment. Bye for now.